The Senate will come to order. I ask everyone present to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend Melvin D. Boone from Vanderveer Park United Methodist Church in Brooklyn will deliver today's invocation.
Good morning. To Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins, to Senator Kevin S. Parker, my senator, brother, and friend, to members of this august body, and to everyone under the sound of my voice, please join me in a moment of prayer. Gracious, loving, eternal, and merciful God, we bow humbly before you this morning. First, to thank you for the opportunity to be of service in this world you have made. You've given us dominion, authority, and great responsibility. Help us to remember that to whom much has been given, much is required. Lord, you have also taught us that there are none who are righteous in and of themselves, and so we come this morning petitioning the presence of your Holy Spirit even in this place. By your grace, may your Holy Spirit lead and guide us in this day. By your grace, may we receive your righteousness that you have made available to us. In the thoughts we have, in the words we speak, in the actions we take, and in all that we do, we seek to honor and glorify you as we serve in our various capacities. And you have told us what is good and what you require of us. That is, to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. In a time when many have grown fearful, in a time when many have lost confidence in our government, in a time when many have become overburdened with concerns about our climate, our economy, gun violence, health care, personal and political rights, freedoms, and responsibilities, race and cultural disunity, education, and much more. In a time when so many people have lost hope, may you show yourself to be mighty and strong. May you, in all your omniscience and omnipotence, grant that this body and everyone under the sound of my voice would use this day to restore hope, to make lives better. May you give us the courage, inspire us, and help us, in the words of John Wesley, to do all the good we can, by all the means we can, in all the ways we can, and in all the places we can, at all the times we can, to all the people we can, for as long as ever we can. O God, may our will be lost in thine, and may your grace be with us this day, for Lord, your grace is sufficient. Amen.
Reading of the journal.
In Senate, Tuesday, May 9, 2023, the Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The journal of Monday, May 8, 2023 was read and approved. On motion, the Senate adjourned.
Without objection, the journal stands approved as read. Presentation of petitions, messages from the Assembly. Secretary will read.
Senator Sanders moves to discharge from the Committee on Banks. Assembly Bill number 1153A is substituted for the identical Senate Bill 1144A, third reading calendar 83. Senator Steck moves to discharge from the Committee on Health. Assembly Bill number 3238 is substituted for the identical Senate Bill 2780, third reading calendar 383. Senator Adabo moves to discharge from the Committee on Agriculture. Assembly Bill number 3552A is substituted for the identical Senate Bill 1677A, third reading calendar 675.
So ordered. Messages from the Governor, reports of standing committees, reports of select committees, communications and reports from state officers, motions and resolutions. Senator Gianaris.
Good morning, Madam President. We're going to begin with the privilege resolution that's at the desk, Privilege Resolution 947. Please take that up, read its title, and recognize Senator Kennedy.
The Secretary will read.
Senate Resolution 947 by Senator Kennedy, commemorating the one-year anniversary of the mass shooting at Tops Friendly Markets in Buffalo, New York on May 14, 2023, and honoring the victims, survivors, families, and community at large in wake of this devastating tragedy.
Senator Kennedy on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins for allowing this privileged resolution to come to the floor today. I rise today with a heavy heart to recognize a day that has changed the city of Buffalo, our state, and our nation forever. May 14th, 2022. 1 year later, and I can recall that day down to the minute. I was away for the weekend with my family when I got a call from my staff member, Zanetta Everhart, who serves as my Director of Diversity and Inclusion. Zanetta was sobbing, telling me her son, Zaire, had been shot. A gunman had opened fire at a community grocery store on Jefferson Avenue in the heart of Buffalo's East Side, a grocery store that the neighborhood fought for years to get right in the heart of the community. The following hours were a blur of emotion, of action, of heartbreak. Over that time, we learned that the gunman was a white supremacist who specifically targeted that grocery store because he meticulously researched the demographics of the neighborhood where more than 80% of the residents are African American. We learned of the 10 lives that this racist terrorist stole so callously that day. These people were loved. These people were part of us, part of the fabric of our community. Roberta A. Drury of Buffalo, age 32. Margus D. Morrison of Buffalo, age 52. Andre McNeil of Auburn, age 53. Aaron Salter of Lockport, age 55. Geraldine Talley of Buffalo, age 62. Celestine Cheney of Buffalo, age 65. Hayward Patterson of Buffalo, age 67. Catherine Massey of Buffalo, age 72. Pearl Young of Buffalo, age 77. Ruth Whitfield of Buffalo, age 86. 1 year later, and yet their absence is still just as profound. 1 year later, our grief is still overwhelming, and we find ourselves mourning their memories often. But also, 1 year later, as we look back on that day, we choose to celebrate their lives. Buffalo is a unique city. We are the city of good neighbors. Time and again, in our hardest moments, we come together, stronger, hopeful, lifting each other up. I've never hugged as many people as I did in the days following May 14th. Complete strangers embody the City of Good Neighbors nickname, stepping up to bridge the gaps in food, to connect individuals with mental health resources, and at the end of seemingly endless days, just to listen. We can heal so much when we simply listen to each other. Today, Zaire is healing. He still has shrapnel inside his body when bullets pierced his neck. But his mother will tell you he is resilient, and by the grace of God, he is still with us. In fact, our community came together just days after May 14th to join Zaire as he celebrated his 21st birthday, and by a miracle, we will be able to celebrate again later this month. Tragically, not every family can say the same. I pray for those we have lost, and I know my colleagues do as well. In their memory, we must do everything in our power to call out hate in every form, denounce racism, and create a more inclusive and just society for everyone. That is how we can honor them. Thank you again to all of my colleagues and to people all across this great state and nation and the global community for thinking of Buffalo and coming to our aid in our time of need. Let us work together to prevent this cycle from repeating anywhere else in America. May those 10 beautiful souls rest in peace. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Comrie on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today to speak on a resolution commemorating a year since the shootings in Buffalo, which has been a tragedy to our state in many different ways. The fact that we've had in this country over 300 shootings since then, the fact that we had a young person that came from the middle part of the state that had been indoctrinated in hate because he never had a chance to be acculturated to the beauty and culture of what made New York State so great, which is the assimilation of people that come from all over the world to try to come to New York to have a better life. We must realize that we have a responsibility as legislators to ensure that all New Yorkers can understand who we are as New Yorkers, where we come from, that we're all immigrants to this state, that we all have to understand and appreciate each person that we encounter, because you never know who that person can do or who that person knows in your life, or who that person may have relationships to. We must work as a state to make sure that we create opportunities for our young people to be acculturated to all different types of culture, all ethnicities, to have an understanding so that they don't gain hate in their heart from the internet where they want to go find a minority community and shoot people, or a community that they're not familiar with and take life because someone on the internet told them to do so. We have responsibilities as legislators to make sure that there is a curriculum of inclusion throughout every school in this state to prevent young people from going down these negative paths, to prevent people from being indoctrinated by the internet to things that are totally sick, that are creating opportunities for divisiveness as opposed to creating an opportunity to bring our state together. We're at a critical stage in our country where divisiveness seems to be the rule of the day as opposed to trying to build bridges, where we're trying to allow people to come in to try to start a life, but we're hindering them by not giving them an opportunity to immediately work, where we'd rather denigrate people for their inadequacies rather than to embrace them and give them an uplift. We've gotten away from the traditions of this country. We need to get back there. The shooting that happened in Buffalo was only emblematic of that we're not training our young people properly, where this young man all of a sudden decided that he's going to be a racist and a bigot, and he wanted to kill minority people. We must do something to change our young people's hearts and minds in New York. It's only through education that we can do this, I would submit, Madam President. We have to have a curriculum of inclusion in every school in New York State. We have to get away from these precepts that is going to cause divisiveness or over-acculturate people or try to make excuses for what happened. We got to focus on making sure that every child in this state gets an opportunity to understand and appreciate that every person they encounter is someone that they should respect, someone that they should embrace, someone that they should learn to understand and appreciate, and someone that they could grow with and not be divisive of. I weep for the people in Buffalo that are still suffering from the after effects of this shooting, because something like this will hurt and imprint someone for the rest of their lives. and I hope that we can continue to provide all the resources we can to that community and to every individual that's a victim of gun shooting. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Comrie. Senator Bailey on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senator Kennedy, for not just introducing this resolution, but I know it's very difficult for you to speak on this one because it's home. And when things hit closer to home, they have a reverberating effect, not just for you, but not just for your family, not just for your constituents, but for your staff like Zanetta and Zaire and all of the families of those individuals that we lost. And, you know, when we speak on resolutions sometimes, Madam President, I have a conception of what I think I'm going to say, but sometimes life's eternal highway gives me a detour provided by Senator Comrie. And I thank you for that, Senator Comrie. You know, a lot of the times in this chamber, the only thing the people that we represent, when they're watching the legislative channel or they're seeing the debates, is conflict. All they see is conflict. All they see is Senator Rhodes and I debating about Discovery, but they don't see us in the lounge talking about the Mets. All they see is Senator Palumbo and I debating bail, but they don't see us talking about life and family. They don't see that. We are 0.000000001 of the population, and we represent 100% of the population. We're not going to be the cure to racism. There is no cure to racism, but there are eventual steps that we can take towards that, and it starts in this chamber. And I'm not saying don't represent your district to the best of your ability. We've got to message better. That the people across the aisle and the people that they represent are not bad people. They're not evil people. They're not people that should be shot and killed for being black. They're not that. They are deserving of life and acceptance and gratitude, just like anybody else. So it's about the curriculum in the schools. It's also about the curriculum in the chamber. In every chamber and not just state legislature, county legislator, a municipal body and governing body, where anybody that has a mouthpiece that people will listen to have to speak what the good pastor would have said is the good news. That there is good in everyone's heart. You got to dig a little deeper sometimes, Madam President, but there is good in everyone's heart. How do we find that? How do you make sure that you learn from an early age? When we talk about, in the medical profession, early intervention, right? Stop the problem before it becomes a larger one, right? You know, if you have a warning to get diabetes, then you should start a diet that will stop you from getting diabetes. Well, if you don't want racism to affect our country and our society, well, start that diet now. Start feeding our kids responsible information. Start showing them that it's okay to be different. Your echo chamber might work for you, but there's life beyond the echo chamber. You know, I had the privilege of going to the top supermarket in Buffalo in July, like on the one weekend that Tim Kennedy wasn't there. And, Madam President, it was like walking near holy ground. You could feel the spirit. You can feel the love there. And the artwork, there were writings on the ground. There were messages from people from throughout the country who had gone there to pay their respects. And I don't know if that display is still there in that same form. But in the top supermarket, there was a waterfall that was built in the waterfall. That was built in the supermarket with the names etched of those that we lost. Madam President, and I stopped and I just kind of stared at it, dumbfounded, probably about a minute. And I thought about the anguish that the families feel. And I thought about the anguish that the city of Buffalo feels, but I thought about what's my responsibility in this moment? what am I going to take out of this? And, life is complicated, so are people. And the message that I ultimately believe that I've gotten is that I need to continue to take steps towards making sure that acceptance is real. And that while I know that it must be much more difficult for those in the city of Good Neighbors, this is something that we felt throughout the country, especially in black communities. Being targeted for who you are is never okay. And it's tough in death when life seems scary. And to be afraid to go to certain places was a common refrain for black folks throughout the country. As I close, I just want to say I thank the leader for putting this resolution on, and I know that there will be commemorations throughout the weekend in the city of Buffalo, and I give my best to the city, but we've got to do more. Each and every one of us in here has an audience. We have a group. We have responsibility. And as the pastor said, I couldn't even leave it off in a better moment. To whom much is given, much is required. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Bailey. Senator Sanders on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank my colleague, Senator Kennedy, and the leader for understanding that this is a necessary thing that we do and to mark this tragic occasion. And like most people in America, we all cry out, how long will this go on? How many times will this have to happen before we as a country decide that we're going to stop this madness? This madness in Buffalo, of course, has been predated time and time again. We can go back to Timothy McVeigh, the arch villain of the Oklahoma City bombings. He was from New York. He was raised in New York. We can go to the black church in South Carolina, the slaughter there. We can go to the Jewish synagogue in Pittsburgh. We can just go back to Buffalo and say, where and when are we going to stop and deal with this issue? We're now faced with the white supremacists in Texas. 2 or 3, Texas seems to be generating an increasing amount faster and faster. In fact, all of the nation seems to be going faster and faster. More and more of these, the tempo is just increasing. We need to get serious. Perhaps there is one thing that we can do. We can look at the gun of choice of the madmen and say that the AR-15, which is the civilian counterpart of the M16, has no place. It's a terrible weapon for hunting, anything except people. It's a terrible weapon for hunting. There are far better weapons for hunting. This one is made for one purpose, to see how many people you can get in as short a period of time as possible. We all need to just get serious here. What is the number that we as a society will accept? How many more Buffaloes will we accept before we decide to say that we've reached it? Is it 20 more? Because we may get to that by next week if we don't watch ourselves. Is it 100 more? What is the number? To the people of Buffalo, our hearts go out to you. To the people of Texas, I could go on, but I'd have to name every state in the nation. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Senator Martins on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I too rise to thank the sponsor for this resolution. It is important that we remember, that we not forget. There is an open wound in the state, certainly in this country, and it speaks to a mental health crisis that we have. And we talk about policy in this chamber, and we discuss policy all the time. But we have to do more. Our children are suffering, whether it's because of social media, whether it's because, as Senator Bailey said, we live in echo chambers and we choose to follow those voices that are most appealing to us. We don't diversify, we don't open our minds to other cultures and to other ideas, but hate in any form has to be opposed. And that's what we're supposed to do right here in this chamber. So when we discuss policies, let's discuss policies globally. Let's talk about those things that we can do to make our kids' lives better, our future better. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about social media and the effects that social media has on our children, on their minds, on their preconceptions, and on people out there who are predisposed to listening to certain hateful messages. You know, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, and I believe that. I believe that we can be better. You know, Senator Sanders asked how many is too many. The first one was too many. Every one is too many, and every one is a reminder of the failure that we have as a society, and certainly here in the state, we bear our brunt of that as well. Every one of them is a reminder of what we need to do here in this chamber to prevent the next one from happening. What are we prepared to do? Let's have that discussion. Because as Senator Bailey said, we sit here oftentimes and we discuss and we talk at each other. But there are things we can all agree on, and this is one of those things we should all agree on, every one of us in this chamber. We have a responsibility to do better. We have a responsibility to figure out why this is happening. We have a responsibility in this state to do something about it. So to the points that were made earlier, let's take this as our call to work together to find that solution. Let's use this as the opportunity to understand that we're one state, regardless of what our backgrounds is, regardless of what ethnicity it is, whatever race we have, whatever religion we have a responsibility as New Yorkers to do better because we have failed, and this is just one latest example of how we failed. So, Madam President, I proudly vote aye. I thank Senator Kennedy for bringing this resolution, and I commit myself with the rest of my colleagues to work together to figuring this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Martin. Senator Webb on the resolution.
Madam President, I rise to thank Senator Kennedy for bringing forth this resolution and also to our Majority Leader. And so I was thinking about what I wanted to offer in this moment. So I wanted to share this piece here. But we must go on to say that while it may be true that morality cannot be legislated, behavior can be regulated. It may be true that the law cannot change the heart, but it can restrain the heartless. It may be true that the law cannot make a man love me, but it can keep him from lynching me, and I think that is pretty important. Also, there is a need for executive orders. There is a need for judicial decrees. There is a need for civil rights legislation in the local scale within states and on the national scale from the federal government. This was a quote, a part of Dr. Martin Luther King's speech at Western Michigan University on December 18th, 1963. And this particular quote for me resonates in the work that I've done over the years as a public servant in asking this question: how do we, through legislation, create a more equitable society, a more equitable community? And so in commemorating this day, knowing that we lift up and honor the names of all the victims who were impacted by this travesty and those who are surviving in the larger community, what can we do in this chamber to not have more days like this? And there's several things. One, it requires us to acknowledge that white supremacy is a problem. It is a danger, not just to people of color. It is a danger and impediment to everyone's growth and ability to have a better quality of life. It also requires us to look at the issues around domestic terrorism. And what are those policies and practices that we can put in place to avoid and prevent the spreading of that vitriol that permeates people's minds and their spirits, and then they enact in behavior that creates harm for generations to come. Now, the massacre that happened in Buffalo, significantly tragic, and as some of my colleagues have already alluded to, reverberates across the community of Buffalo, but across our state and nation as a whole. And at the same time, we have actions that we do every day on an interpersonal level that are driven by bigotry, and we can and should do better. And so I think it is important in this moment to honor the victims and their families. What can we do in this chamber on this day and every day is to name the thing what it is. Racism is not only an epidemic, it is a pandemic. It is a public health issue, and it requires leadership to recognize it and actively address it, whether it's through us here in government, healthcare, every institution that makes up our society. We have a responsibility to address it. And so I think it is important, and we are reminded on days like this of why we sit in these seats, and also more importantly, what are we doing to make things better for those coming after us, not just simply that'll be sitting in these seats, but in our respective communities, because we all deserve to live in a community where we don't have to question or wonder, if I go to the grocery store, will I be shot? Or will I be treated differently for a job because of the color of my skin? Madam President, we have an obligation here to not only honor the memory of the victims of the Buffalo Massacre, but also all the ways in which racism permeates our state and our society. Again, I want to thank Senator Kennedy for bringing forth this legislation, all my colleagues, and the remarks that they have shared thus far and those that will happen subsequently. I will be voting aye on this legislation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Webb. Senator Krueger on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I also rise to thank Senator Kennedy and our leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, for bringing the resolution to the floor, because we actually can't talk about this enough. It's not just the story of Buffalo. It's a story in every newspaper of our country. It feels like every day of our lives now. Mass shootings driven by ignorance and hatred. And it's not all traditional racism. Of course it is towards Black and brown people. It's anti-Semitism, it's anti-Asian violence, it's Islamophobia violence. Hatred and violence are both growing in our country in correlation to each other. And that's what's so terrifying to me, that there's always some level of people not understanding each other and some people hating each other. But the level of which is it's going on now in our country, where we almost forget mass shootings 2 days later because a new one showed up in some other state, in some other town. We go, well, now it's them. Well, it's not them, it's all of us, and it's impacting all of us. And the growth in the violence correlated to the growth in access to guns, and more dangerous guns, with less and less rules that can be applied, is what's also literally triggering the amount of violence that's done in any given incident. So I don't have all the answers. I don't think anyone in this room does, but it is absolutely correlated to our doing a better job of educating our children, educating each other, making clear that none of it will be stood for, reporting in when you think something's happening or could be happening, and forcing ourselves to say, we are America, we are New York State, we are not going to let this continue. We are not simply going to read about the next incident and shrug our shoulders and go, what can we do? There is absolutely more we can do at every level of government, and we must. So my heart goes out to everyone who's been impacted by this violence throughout this country. And yet I know in my heart, I'm just waiting for the next incident, hoping it's not anywhere near us. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Krueger. Senator Borrello on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I first rise to thank Senator Kennedy for this and certainly send my condolences. You know, we are all Western New Yorkers, myself, and we were rocked by what happened on that day. You know, Western New York is actually a small community in many ways. That day, a good friend of mine who I've known for 30 years, a pharmacist, usually working on Saturdays, was not there that day, but yet, you know, so much tragedy, so much pain. It affected us all. You know, in those days afterwards, I was very proud of the response from our Western New York delegation. We all gathered together for a food distribution because the loss, the painful loss there, was also followed by a critical grocery store being closed, and the food that those folks needed was not there any longer. So we all went to a food distribution, and we all worked together. And so many people from all across the state, all across the country, supported that effort. That's the thing that shows that in the end, we are good people. As Senator Bailey said, that we do have good things in our heart. You know, I look at the list of bills, and you know, we debate, we fight, but in the end, most of the bills we all agree on, most of the time. Outside this chamber, we work together on lots of things. In these waning days of our session, we will push and work together to get all those local bills that are important to everyone, no matter Republican, Democrat, whatsoever, they will get done. That is the spirit which we need to share with the outside world. So, in closing, I will say that we mourn the losses, that we are all affected by this, and we will do better and must do better. So, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Borrello. Senator Brooke on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to start by thanking my colleague, Senator Kennedy, and the rest of the Buffalo delegation, both in the Senate and in the Assembly, for honoring and remembering those that were lost and for all that you've done to support your community. And we know the things that make headlines and the things that don't, that you all have put into supporting your community. I also want to say to the families who lost loved ones in Buffalo that we love you, we stand with you, and we are mourning with you. A lot of folks have talked about today some of the things that we face here in the United States and in New York. And the only way I can think to describe it is deadly diseases. We are suffering from the deadly disease of racism in this country, in this state, in this community, and we are suffering from the deadly disease of an obsession with guns and assault weapons. Racism, and I say this not just as a Black woman, as a chair of a mental health committee, racism is not a mental illness. Racism is a disease that this country was founded on and that we have failed to cure, that we have failed to make the most meaningful advances against. And while here in New York we have made advances against the deadly disease of gun violence, as a nation we have failed terribly. And I think we really need to face the fact that there are other countries that have prevalent mental illness. There are other countries that have prevalent racism. Ask any non-white person who's traveled outside this country to know racism exists, colorism exists all over this world. And yet it's only here in the United States that we have to sit here mourning the losses, putting forward resolutions time and again and again and again and again, because we have a pairing of two deadly diseases of racism and a proliferation of assault weapons. There's no reason why someone with hate in their heart, indoctrinated to hate Black people, should have easy access to a weapon whose sole purpose is to destroy multiple lives. So we sit here and we mourn and we feel the pain, we feel the fear in our own hearts of going into grocery stores, of going for jogs, going through drive-thrus, of living our lives. But that's not enough. Where there is action that needs to be taken, we need to stop acting like we don't know what those actions are, and we need to start showing the courage to take those actions. I'll end with this. The news of the Buffalo massacre happened as I sat at home with a 1-month-old baby. And I thought to myself, how dare I bring this beautiful Black life into this world that does not deserve her? And I recommitted to myself and to all of our families, all of us, that I have to do every single thing that I can, every single day, to make this world and this state one that deserves this beautiful baby girl. And that's what I've recommitted every single day since. And I'll say once again, Senator Kennedy, thank you for your leadership, for the leadership of many of my colleagues, to our leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins. And I beg of anyone who hasn't done the work they need to do every day, not just legislating, but in how you talk and treat people, that we do more. And I vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brooke. Senator Jackson on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. My colleagues, I rise to speak on this matter. Senator Kennedy, thank you for your leadership. To the families that are here, your lives and the lives of so many people have been changed forever. I thought about the assault weapons that were used in this particular matter and around our country. And I think about what I've said even several years ago. And after listening to our president, President Biden, speaking about a ban on assault weapons after the Nashville, Tennessee shooting. I've said a long time ago, if I was the President of the United States, I would have banned all assault weapons. And some people say, how would you do that? Get Congress to pass a law that we will pay everyone what they paid for that assault weapon. And if you did not hand it in, you will be brought up on charges of committing a crime. Because if we look around and think about everything that we've seen, thousands of people have died in our country as a result of assault weapons. And some people will argue, well, it's my right under the Second Amendment of the Constitution to bear arms. Well, that's your right, but it doesn't say it has to be an assault weapon. What if I wanted to bring a bazooka at home in order to take it at home? Is that okay? Of course it's not. Lives have been lost and people's lives have changed forever as a result of these mass shootings all over the place. And yes, racism is a part of it. But today, we mourn the tragic life and bodily injuries of people from Buffalo, New York. And as someone from New York City, NYPD sends out an alert every time there's an incident. And as a member of the State Senate from New York City, I see too many reports of gun violence where people are being shot and killed. And majority of those people in New York City are people of color. It's crazy. We need to get a hold of this as a country and ban assault weapons and reduce guns in our homes and protect one another with whatever we can do. So with that, Madam President, I vote aye. I wish that I had the magic solution to wave a wand and to eliminate all racism and eliminate all guns in our country, but I don't. So we work together.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Senator Persaud on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, it is every time there is a mass shooting, first, thank you to Senator Kennedy and to our Majority Leader for allowing this resolution to the floor. Every time there's a mass shooting across this country, the first thing we instinctively say is our thoughts and prayer. We say our thoughts and prayer because at that time, everyone believes in religion. And then a little after that, people start to squabble about the rights of the person who committed that heinous crime. And it always comes back to saying, well, he has a right to have a gun. He's a right to have a gun. Ask ourselves when we look in the mirror every day, do I have a right to walk up to you, Senator Borrello? Do I have a right to walk up to you and punch you in the face and just walk away? Do I have a right? Someone can say, yeah, I'm expressing my frustration, so I have a right. But do I really? And then we say, it's my right. You know, do you have a right to have the weapons and ammunition in your home? Are you arming a small militia? Are you? That's the question we should ask whenever we hear that someone walked into a church, a supermarket, a mall, a shopping mall, and just starts shooting with a rifle or a gun that they purchased legally in another state. And then they come to express the hatred that they've been taught. And I say taught. No one is born hating. No one. We walk in, we see each other. We're different cultures, different ethnic groups. But we are taught to dislike someone who does not look like us. And for the vast majority of people who are taught to dislike the person who does not look like them, it's about power. It's about control. That's what that hatred is about. If you can control someone who does not look like you, you are showing the people of your groups that you are better than everyone else. That's what it's all about. A few years ago, there was an event, and a little boy ran up to his mom in tears. He was 4 years old. She says, "What's the matter?" And he says, I'm going to say little Johnny. Little Johnny says, "My dad said I should not play with brown kids." That's what he said. Why are we telling our children that it's not okay to play with a child because the child looks different from him or her? And that's what we see every day. That's what we see every day. And that's why across this country, we are seeing more and more mass shootings, because young children are taught that when you see someone who does not look like you, you must hate them. And we always say hate is a strong word, but that's exactly what it is. It's a word that's used in families because they don't like someone who looks like them. We see every day, we hear every day, people in circles that we're all part of. "Oh, I don't want them moving in next to me." Why? Because they're different. They look different to you. They're going to change the makeup of our community. What have they done to you? They've done nothing to you. But you've been indoctrinated in the hatred of others that you don't see, and you can't for yourself figure out that that's wrong. Each of us in here has a responsibility to break that cycle. Each of us, when we look in the mirror, should say, when I go out there today, I'm going to be the one that's going to start that conversation. Don't be afraid of the person who's standing next to you because they look different than you are. They're not your enemy. The person who walked into Tops and decided to kill those people walked in there and did that because he was told that black people were his enemy. That's it. They had done nothing to him, but he was told that they were his enemy. Don't be afraid of someone who does not look like you. We have a responsibility to break that cycle. That little child that's sitting in the gallery up there, let's show that little child that we are responsible people, and we are going to change that conversation in the state of New York. Don't hate someone who doesn't look like you. Don't do that. When you go to your school or you're walking and you see a little kid who's different from you, say hi to them. If you hear adults telling you, come on, they're not one of us, don't believe that. We are all human beings. Many of us in here sit and say, we're Christian, we're whatever religion. Well, if you really, deep inside of you, believe in the God that you believe in, you will also believe that we are all one people. That's what you will believe. And you will change that conversation that you have when you walk out into the public. So to all of you, and to everyone in the gallery, remember, we are all one people. We may look different, but we were all created to be the same. I bleed the same as you bleed. No different. So to the people of Buffalo, we will continue to stand with you. And we continue, I hope to God that Senator Krueger is wrong, that we're not going to have another mass shooting. That's what we hope for. So to Senator Kennedy, thank you. Thank you, thank you. And again, to all of you, remember, we are one people. Let's behave that way. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Prasad. Senator Ryan on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to my colleague from Buffalo, Senator Kennedy, for bringing this resolution. And thank you to my colleagues from around the state for their expression of support and grief. There was 202 mass shootings in the United States so far this year. And you read the list, and last year we opened January with welcoming in a mass shooting in Milwaukee, then a mass shooting in Dumas, Arkansas, then a mass shooting in Sacramento, then a mass shooting in Brooklyn, then a mass shooting in Milwaukee. And you try to digest this, as an American, you read about these things and you think, I feel so bad for those communities, and you try to have empathy, and you try to imagine their pain. But then May 14th happened, and suddenly you realized all the empathy you thought you had for all those other communities, it was an illusion, because the grief and the feeling of helplessness is so compounded, when it's a mile and a half from your house. I was doing yard work in the backyard. I'd been to some community events, and there was a lot of helicopters buzzing overhead, and we don't have a lot of helicopters in Buffalo, and I just couldn't imagine why there would be helicopters. But you just don't think these things can happen to you. It's when tragedy comes to your town, and you don't know what to do with it. And we passed laws after. We passed regulations after, as I'm sure the people in all those other communities who suffered these profound tragedies do. But am I
cynical side, I wonder if those really have impacts. And you go through all these shootings and you think, well, let's look at what brought this person to that, right? That's what the press always wants to find out. What brought this person to it? We can never figure it out. But I've sort of gone off this looking into the hearts of these shooters, and instead, I think we have to look into the hearts, not of Americans, but maybe into America's heart. You know, why is it that, like, after this happened in Buffalo, you would think this can never happen anywhere else again? But before the month was over, it had happened. And the profound grief that we suffered, you realize, is being suffered all over the United States of America. And this goes to the American heart, right? Like, you know, we're a couple miles from the Canadian border. They don't suffer mass shootings like we suffer mass shootings. You know, I have a daughter who lives in Japan. You know, they have a handful of gun deaths a year. Like, what is it with us that makes us behave so savagely to ourselves? I don't have an answer. I mean, everyone who's spoken has spoken so eloquently of it. I have no answers, but I know that 10 people were murdered in Buffalo. And you can't think about it without crying. And you think about the lives lost, and then the suffering of each and every one of their family members. And then the ripple goes out once more to their cousins, aunts, nephews, friends. The ripple goes out once more. And then you think about the people who just went to work at Tops that day. Their lives are never going to be the same. No physical harm came to them. How do you go on living after seeing that? And then the EMTs who have to come as part of their job, the firefighters, the police officers, the construction workers, people who had to clean up. It's the ripple of pain is so immense. And I know that's a ripple that we feel so profoundly and so deeply in our hearts as Buffalonians. But then you look at 2023, 202 other communities have experienced what we experienced. We don't want anyone to experience anything like this again. I wish I had an answer for you, but I think the heart lies somewhere in the heart of America.
Thank you, Senator Ryan. Senator Harkam on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to thank Senator Kennedy for this resolution and the really powerful discussion that it is brought about. I also want to thank Senator Kennedy for taking me to the Top supermarket a few short weeks after the shooting to reflect on the carnage and the loss of life that had happened there. This has been a very powerful debate for me, a confluence of a lot of things, of hatred, of our obsession with firearms, as we just heard from Senator Ryan, why this happens nowhere else in the world but the United States of America. And I just wanted to comment on one other angle of this is the nexus of weaponizing hate on social media, which is a common thread in all of this. In all of these mass shootings, there seems to be a thread of hatred on social media that is weaponized. And, you know, we're dealing with a case of this in my own district. In this case, it has to do with homophobia and transphobia, a nexus of hateful social postings, and the next thing we know, a restaurant was vandalized, the owner's car was vandalized, he was harassed with his children in the car, and so these things are weaponized. And as you well know, Madam President, we met with some young middle schoolers last week talking about anti-Semitism and how it was weaponized in their schools through social media. And one of the young men that Madam President, I met with as we spoke about all of these issues, at 12 years old, had the wherewithal to say, it's not okay. It's not okay. And yet so many adults think that hate speech is okay. So it's a challenge. You know, we live in a society with free speech. How do we regulate hate speech? But so much of hate speech is now being weaponized, and to the tragic results that we've seen. And I remember when I was in elementary school, the worst thing we had were fire drills. And when that bell went off, we loved it. It got us out of class, it got us out of the building, it got us outdoors. And now our students have mass shooting drills, live fire drills. Our police departments, even the smallest ones, now have to train on active shooter situations in school districts. And this is what we've come to. And so it's not a good state of affairs by any imagination. And it just, as other colleagues have said, leads us to know that we have so much more work to do, both in this chamber and back in our districts. So I thank you, Senator Kennedy. I will be voting aye. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Hoylman Siegel on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Kennedy, for those moving words. And Senator Ryan, my heart goes out to you and to your constituents and to the families who lost loved ones and to the families who were injured and no doubt will suffer decades of post-traumatic syndrome. The harm, the carnage that an AR-15 inflicts upon a body is incalculable. And even if you survive a mass shooting, you really didn't, as the studies will show. And I want to thank my colleagues for their thoughtful words on this very solemn occasion. And to put a finer point on the number of mass shootings, 202 just this year alone. Madam President, there've only been 130 days in 2023. We witness a mass shooting at least once a week in this country. And if it's not going to be Buffalo, it could be New York City, it could be Binghamton, it could be any part of our state or our community. And I just want to say that activists like Moms Demand Action and New Yorkers Against Gun Violence have done everything they can in their power, as I think we have, to make certain that our communities are safe. But boy, we have so much work to do at the federal level, and even in this chamber, as we try to move legislation like the Grieving Families Act, which is going to lift up families who have been devalued, those victims in the Buffalo shooting due to 175-year-old statute here in New York, but also holding gun manufacturers liable, which is what we did in this chamber. I'm so proud that we were one of the first states in the nation. We have to respond to these tragedies with laws that have meaning and protect our communities. And when my 5-year-old comes home and describes the lockdown drill that she experienced, I wonder what is the impact on her growing brain and emotional stability. It's extremely frightening for young children. If we're nervous about it, try to put ourselves into their shoes. And I appreciate the bills we have on social media responsibility, continuing our efforts in gun safety, reforming our laws around protecting victims and ensuring that they get the support they need after these tragedies. But I want to commend my colleagues for their work, and I welcome the support, not just the words, from our colleagues across the aisle, but the courage to stand up to the gun manufacturers, to stand up to members of your own party, particularly at the national level, to do what's right for our communities and ensure there's not another incident like Buffalo in our lifetime or ever. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Senator Fernandez on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Kennedy, for bringing this resolution, this conversation to the floor today, because one way or another, we have to keep talking about it. We have to keep recognizing that the hate, the fear, the killings is not a normal thing. When it comes to mass shootings in this country, yesterday I saw it online, FBI ad teaching people how to get away from a mass shooter. What's the best tactics, how to hide, how to stop him, how to survive. Like it was a natural disaster and we needed to duck and cover because at any point a hurricane could come. And it scared me. It scared me that this is now something that we want to normalize, that the FBI feels we have to normalize because it's just not stopping. And that's wrong. It's been said, and I'm so grateful that my colleagues recognize it, say it, and talk to each other about it, that this is a problem in this country, and it is very obvious we're the only ones with this problem. And the common denominator always is the access to assault rifles and guns that allow those that have hate in their hearts to kill others. And for those that suffered at the hands of hate and racism, and someone who had easy access to a gun, I pray every day for you, and I'm sorry that that had to happen to your family. And I know that I stand here today ready to continue to fight and to push back on those that say you have that right. Because no, we don't have that right to hate. And it's really sad that in my life, fighting for my constituents, that I still face racism in my own district. I've had people tell me that they're not going to vote for me because I'm Latina. Literally those words. And I'm very grateful that majority of the district saw aside from that and they put me here today. But this is a real crisis, and I think we've been at the peak. We haven't reached it, we've been at the peak. And I hope that everyone in this room and in this state can see that if we're not going to make drastic changes to what we're teaching our children, to what we're allowing access to, we're going to keep passing resolutions mourning. I will never forget those that have suffered at that, but it hurts to keep mourning every single day because we're seeing this every single day. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this conversation today, and I absolutely vote aye on this resolution, and I look forward to all of us in this room to continue working to stop the evil that is happening in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fernandez. Senator Clear on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm a little under the weather today, and I wasn't planning on speaking on this, but I feel so moved to do so. Senator Kennedy, thank you. I know this was tough for you. I remember when it happened, and I saw the pain in you and others of my colleagues as well. You know, this wasn't so abstract. It was right there. It was home. This wasn't across the country. This wasn't down south. This was in New York State. People were killed because they were black. Yes, we have a problem with assault weapons, but we have a problem with race, and I'm encouraged by today's conversation in this chamber. I think it is the most conversation we have had about race and racism. I think we have to have more conversations. It's a hard topic. It's difficult for all of us. We have to examine what are we doing or what are we not doing that contributes to the problem. And when you see disparities across the board, you may not think it's the case, but disparities in healthcare, disparities in education, disparities in employment, one after the other, you look at any topic, disparities. The people who are impacted feel not valued, and the people who hate, it is reinforced that they have no value when we don't provide these services. when we don't do things for everyone in society, when we don't recognize that we have a problem of racism in this country and in this state. Starting with our curriculum in school, we have to teach it. We have to teach Black history. Black history is important not just to Black children. It's important to white children. It's important to all children because this is what teaches people the value of other people, that they have a value, they have a place, and they're not people to just be shot and killed. Diversity is important. It's important to meet other people, learn other cultures, have compassion for others. I can't imagine anybody doing such a horrible thing, and I've questioned it long after the event happened. What could be going on in this person's mind? It is so inhumane today, in this day and age, where we think that education is available and we think we've come a long way and we've gone through the worst that this country had to offer. But it remains because we don't get rid of it. We have to make a conscious decision that we are going to get rid of all of these disparities, that we're going to address racism wherever it lives. We're going to cut it out because people like this gentleman think they have a right to kill people that have no value in his mind. So today, Senator Kennedy, I thank you for continuing to honor these families. I know you had someone close to you affected, and though he survived, I know there are scars that will never go away, not for him or his family. It is frightening to think that that could happen to anybody doing anything. So we have to continue to remember, and I thank you for bringing this resolution, and I proudly vote aye.
Thank you, Senator Clear. All those in favor of adopting the resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The resolution is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
Mr. President, can you recognize Senator Oberacher for an introduction, please?
Senator Oberacher for an introduction.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, I'm so happy to have a group from the 51st Senate District from my home county with me here today. Leadership Otsego is a program coordinated by the Otsego Chamber of Commerce focused on developing community stewards from all walks of life. This program, which was and has been existed since 1997, concentrates on the many challenges we have locally. A true bottom-up approach that has helped develop and inspire our next generation of leaders. You know, certainly there's nothing more educational and inspiring than a visit to the great New York State Senate Chamber. And I'm honored to have the 2023 class of Leadership Otsego here today and hope that this visit will enhance their learning experience. Welcome to all. Enjoy your time here at the Capitol. And I would ask, Madam President, that we extend all the courtesies of the Chamber to this wonderful group.
Thank you, Senator. To our guests, we welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you all the privileges and courtesies of the House. Please rise and be recognized. Senator Gianaris.
Can we now move to previously adopted Resolution 523 by Senator Clear? Read its title and recognize Senator Clear.
The Secretary will read.
Senate Resolution 523 by Senator Clear, commending Robert McCullough for a lifetime of public service to the youth of Harlem, New York, upon the occasion of commemorating the 57th anniversary of Each One, Teach One Incorporated.
Senator Clear on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Bob McCullough is a one-of-a-kind, beloved institution in East Harlem, Harlem, and New York City. Bob may be best known for some of his basketball exploits, such as averaging 36 points a game in the 1964-1965 college season or for his street ball skills at the famed Rucker Park. However, the Bob McCullough that so many know and love is a selfless and powerful advocate for our community, our youth, and our future. After college, Bob decided to immediately give back to his community through his life's work. In 1966, he founded Each One, Teach One in honor of his mentor, Holcomb Rucker. Each One, Teach One has now existed for over half a century, providing mentorship, educational, social, and youth development services in Harlem and beyond. Many famous Each One, Teach One camp counselors exist, such as Dr. J. Julius Irving, Nate Tiny Archibald, Willis Reed, Wilt Chamberlain, Connie Hawkins, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Bill Bradley, among others. After his playing career, Bob McCullough earned a Master of Science degree from Lehman College and studied additionally at NYU, Cornell University, and Hunter College. He served for many years as a guidance counselor and social worker. His mark on our youth and our community has been a shining achievement. Due to his inspiring mentorship, multiple successive generations have learned core values, focused on education, excelled on the court and off, attended college, received degrees, played in the NBA, and have given back to their community. Bob was and is, but was the violence interruption before it became a term. He was always dedicated to the Harlem community. And I believe strongly in celebrating our community heroes. He served on Community Board 10 for 30 years, always giving back. Today, Bob, I want to let you know how much you mean to the Harlem community, to the New York community, for all the work that you've done over these years. It is an honor to know you and an honor to honor you today. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Clear. To Mr. McCullough and your guests, we welcome you to this House and extend all the privileges and courtesies of the Senate. Please rise and be recognized. The resolution was previously adopted on May 2nd. Senator Gianaris.
That would be me, Madam President.
Oh, Senator Lou. I didn't look up. I apologize.
That's okay. He had some business to take care of. At the request of the sponsors, both resolutions are open for co-sponsorship.
At the request of the sponsor, all resolutions are open for co-sponsorship. Should you choose not to be a co-sponsor, please notify the desk. Senator Lou.
Please take up, Madam President, please take up the reading of the calendar.
The Secretary will read.
Calendar number 83, Assembly number 1153A by Assemblymember Vernell, an act to amend the banking law.
Read the last section.
Section 3 is asked to take effect on the 30th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Got it. In relation to calendar 83, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Canzoneri, Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Griffo, Hellman, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Oberacker, O'Mara, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollison, Steck, Tedisco, Warzick, Webbert, and White. Ayes 38, nays 20.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 226, Senate Print 1059 by Senator May, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act take effect on the 60th day and shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator May to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. All over the state, there are people who are living in unsafe conditions in their apartments, and there are a lot of reasons for this, but one of the reasons is because we simply don't have enough code enforcement officers to do the inspections and determine if the living conditions are safe. So this is a particular problem in a lot of rural areas, not because there aren't people who want to do code enforcement, but because they can't get the training. And this bill is going to make it much easier for especially rural communities to train code enforcement officers so that tenants across the state can live in safer conditions. So I'm grateful to my colleagues for supporting this and to the leadership for bringing this forward. I vote aye.
Senator May to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 383, Assembly number 3238 by Assembly Member Jones, an act to authorize certain healthcare professionals licensed to practice in other jurisdictions.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 545, Senate Print 2241 by Senator White, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator White to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. March 21st is World Down Syndrome Day. On this day, people with Down syndrome and those who live and work with them throughout the world organize and participate in activities and events to raise public awareness and create a single global voice advocating for the rights, inclusion, and well-being of people with Down syndrome. That's one of them. Down syndrome is a condition in which a person has an extra chromosome. Chromosomes are the small package of genes in the body. They determine how the baby's body forms and functions as it grows during pregnancy and after birth. Typically, a baby is born with 46 chromosomes. Babies with Down syndrome have an extra copy of one of those chromosomes, chromosome 21. Why March 21st? The 21st day of the third month was selected to signify the uniqueness of the triplication of the 21st chromosome, which causes Down syndrome. I was blessed to get a letter last year from constituent Marissa Bryant, who was kind enough to share this. Dear Senator White, I wanted to sincerely and wholeheartedly thank you for your time and effort and support in helping us pass legislation to designate March 21st as Down Syndrome Awareness Day in New York. As a New Yorker and an expectant mother to our fourth child, Noah James, who is likely to be born with Down syndrome later this summer, it gives my family such comfort and encouragement to see members of our state's leadership championing acknowledgement and awareness of Down syndrome. To know that there's a positive strides in understanding and accepting this chromosomal condition makes the uncertain road ahead seem lighter and brighter for myself and so many others. So thank you again on behalf of myself, my family, and your soon-to-be constituent, Noah. And then later in July last year, I got another message saying that she wanted to follow up to let me know that Noah James was born on July 27th, and he's the light of our lives. And to know someone with Down syndrome is to be touched by a blessing that softens your heart and brightens your life. And so today, I'm so proud that New York State will forevermore recognize March 21st as Down Syndrome Awareness Month. And I'd like to recognize Marissa and her strong as a stone husband, her four adorable children, Ella, Daniel, Sylvie, and baby Noah, who is with us here today in celebration of New York State recognizing Down syndrome awareness.
So first we will say Senator White to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed. To our guests, welcome to the Senate. Thank you for sharing with us here today. Please rise and be recognized. Secretary will read.
Calendar number 561, Senate Print 5178 by Senator Brooke, an act in relation to establishing a task force to study aging in place in mental health housing.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 596, Senate Print 6056 by Senator Ryan, an act to amend the Economic Development Law and the New York State Urban Development Corporation Act.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Senator Ryan to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. If we didn't know it before the pandemic, we know it now that reliable, high-speed internet is an essential to our way of life. We use it for work, school, telemedicine, you name it. We figured out during the pandemic that life is really hard without internet or without good internet. But a lot of communities throughout New York State have internet service that doesn't work as advertised. These communities are often rural communities, underserved communities, urban communities that have been plagued by disinvestment. But we're doing two things to bring internet into New York State: the Urban and Community Development Program and the Restore New York Communities initiatives are both programs designed to bring internet into underserved communities. We're making a big investment in internet, but we have to make sure we're making the right investment. And fiber optic is the state-of-the-art way to deliver internet to people's home. This bill would add end-to-end fiber optic broadband as a factor to consider when you're figuring out how to spend state money. It will get broadband into underserved communities, but more importantly, it will get good broadband into those communities, because dealing with slow or unreliable internet puts people at a major disadvantage at 2023. We're engaging in a major program in New York State to bring internet throughout the state. We have to make sure we do it right. Federal broadband grant programs already consider fiber optic to be the projects as priority. This bill will make it so New York joins the federal standard in putting the bias towards fiber optic to be able to get the high-quality fiber optics to our communities of need. So I vote aye, Madam President.
Senator Ryan to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 673, Senate Print 142 by Senator Gianaris, an act to amend the Agriculture and Markets Law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act taking effect on the 90th day and shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 674, Senate Print 761 by Senator Kruger, an act to amend the Agriculture and Markets Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 674, voted in the negative, Senator Bridgeport. Ayes 57, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 675, Assembly number 3552A by Assemblymember Pretlow, an act to amend the Agriculture and Markets Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 677, Senate Print 5325 by Senator Martinez, an act to amend the Agriculture and Markets Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act take effect on the 180th day and shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 677, voted in the negative, Senator Bridgeport. Ayes 57, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 678, Senate Print 6365 by Senator Hinchey, an act to amend the Agriculture and Markets Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 680, Senate Print 3552 by Senator Breslin, an act to amend the Education Law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act take effect 2 years after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 683, Senate Print 5616 by Senator Mayer, an act to amend the Education Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the 1st of July.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 687, Senate Print 2894 by Senator Rivera, an act to amend the Public Health Law and the Surrogate Courts Procedure Act.
Read the last section.
Section 5, this act shall take effect on the 90th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
This is the end. Announce results.
In relation to calendar 687, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Cancellieri Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Mannion, Martinez, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollison, Skoufis, Steck, Tedisco, Walzick, Weber, and White. Ayes 36, nays 22.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 694, Senate Print 5707 by Senator Kennedy, an act to amend the Vehicle and Traffic Law and the Insurance Law.
Read the last section.
Section 7, this act shall take effect on the 180th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce results.
In relation to calendar 694, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Gallivan, Griffo, Lanza, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Palumbo, Steck, Walzick, Weber, and White. Ayes 46, nays 12.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 737, Senate Print 6323A by Senator Gonzalez, an act to amend the General Business Law.
The bill is laid aside for the day.
Calendar number 739, Senate Print 1902A by Senator Clear, an act to amend the Labor Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act take effect on the 120th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Senator Liu, the bill is passed. Thank you. Senator Liu, that concludes the reading of today's calendar.
Madam President, on behalf of Majority Leader Stewart Cousins, I hand up the following subcommittee, commission, and task force assignments of the Majority Conference and ask that it be filed in the journal.
The hand-up is received and shall be filed in the journal.
Madam President, on behalf of Majority Leader Stewart Cousins, in consultation with Senator Ort, I hand up the following subcommittees, commission, and task force assignments of the Minority Conference and ask that it be filed in the journal.
The hand-ups are received and shall be filed in the journal. Senator Liu,
Is there any further business at the desk?
there is no further business at the desk.
Madam President, I move to adjourn until Monday, May 15th at 3 p.m., with the intervening days being held legislative days.
On motion, the Senate stands adjourned until Monday, May 15th, at 3 p.m., intervening days being legislative days.